So very good morning to all. So friends, welcome back to Anthropology PYQ series. So let's try to decode every question and let's master every concept. So as a part of our series, we were trying to solve some of the questions from previous year. So in this fashion, let us try to move ahead and let's try to take up another important question for the day from Anthropology paper 2. So the question of the day with us is this. Look at the question. Examine the environmental and biocultural factors influencing the health of tribal health of India. That means health of tribals in India. So this is the question. So this is where let's try to understand the essence of the question and let's try to understand the approach, how we can just proceed further. So if you look from the perspective of the basic demand of the question, so the question is asking us to explain about various factors influencing the health of the tribals in India. So this is one thing. So if you see from tribal perspective, tribals are one of the most vulnerable sections who are having low health parameters. So there are so many problems that are faced by tribals. So for example, so things like poverty, indebtedness, illiteracy or lack of access to healthcare facilities. So land alienation. So there are so many problems that the tribal communities will face. So one amongst the important problem that the tribes will face is so the health issues. So they are the most vulnerable sections who are prone for the health issues. So now the question how we have to approach. First, we should give a short introduction stating that tribes are the most vulnerable sections for the health disorders. So that is one thing. It could be because of their various conditions. So let's discuss about that. Then second thing what you have to mention, so you should mention about the current status of the tribal health. So that is one another important aspect, so that we can explain about the other factors that affect the tribal health. So then we should move towards various factors. So there we should take up first the environmental factors, then biological factors, then the cultural factors. So that's how we can proceed further and we can conclude the answer. Right? So shall we proceed for the answer? So once again, very good morning to all those who have joined us. So good morning, Venushri and all others. Now friends, so first let's try to understand about the important health parameters or the current health status of the tribes. So that is one thing. So when we look from the perspective of the current health status, so what is the current health status? Current health status of particularly tribes. So when we see from that, so we have a data from NH National Family Health Survey 5. So this has been done in and around 2019 to 2021. So according to this data, so what about the various parameters? So what is the health parameters that we can have? So first let us talk about the infant mortality rate. So IMR we will call. So if we talk from IMR perspective, so currently tribals has had around 41.6% of the infant mortality rate. So this is one important astonishing health factor. Then under 5 mortality rate. So we will call it as like under 5 mortality rate. So U5MR. MR means mortality rate. So the prevalence of the incidence of the children who are dying before 5 years. So in their infancy. So that is one thing. So in that instance, so mostly around 50.3% is the statistics. So look at the statistic. So then if you talk from the perspective of the full immunization or vaccination coverage, so from the vaccination coverage point of view, so roughly it is around only 76.8%. So in terms of vaccination coverage, it is 76.8%. So that is one another important thing. That means when we compare these statistics with the normal population or mainstream population, they are very low. So that is one important factor. So then if we talk from the institutional delivery point of view, so here also it is very less. So look at that. So institutional delivery. Institutional delivery. So it is roughly at 82.2%. So this is one important statistic. So when we compare with the mainstream, it is around 90%, 88 and 90%. So it is comparatively very less. That means the people who are taking institutional delivery, that means in hospitals, in such kind of healthcare areas. So like that. So this is one important data that you should understand. So apart from this, if you see, so further important data. So what about the exposure to various diseases? So that is another important aspect. So let's try to see and let's try to have look at that also. So what about the incidence of the communicable diseases? So when we see from communicable diseases point of view, so what about the statistics? So there, first thing that you should see is that, so mostly tribals are among, like mostly constitute 30% of all the malaria cases, despite only being 8.6% of the population. So 30% of the cases are reported from tribes with respect to malaria. This is one astonishing fact that we should remember. That means only 8.6% of tribals are there, but if you look at the entire malaria cases, so it is almost around 30% cases. So that is another important aspect. Then furthermore, if you see high prevalence of the TB, so tuberculosis, so that is another important aspect. So high prevalence of TB. So tuberculosis, so where you can have around 700 per 1 lakh population. So this is one important thing, 700 per 1 lakh. This is the incidence of the reporting of the cases. So that's one important aspect. Then furthermore, if you see from the perspective of our various non-communicable diseases. So non-communicable diseases means which are lifestyle disorders like that. So where we can see so many non-communicable diseases also. So non-communicable diseases. Let's say, for example, first let's look at the incidence of hypertension, that is BP. So if you look from hypertension point of view, so almost 25% of the tribal adults have the hypertension, but awareness is very low. So 25% of the tribals are suffering with the hypertension issues. This is one important astonishing factor, right? So good. So let's try to further proceed. So a very good morning once again to all those who have joined later. So aspirant and Shashi Thakur. Good. So then furthermore, let's see with respect to the other important lifestyle disorders. So there you can have like health issues like low body mass index. So this is one important aspect. So low body mass index in almost 50% of adolescents. So you can have low BMI issues. So you can have about 50% of adolescents have this issue among the tribes. So that is another important aspect. So furthermore, there were around like almost around 65% of the people or tribal population are among anemic condition. So 65% of tribals are with the anemia. So look at the instances and look at the cases. So this is how tribals are being subjected to it. They are more vulnerable to the diseases, health and diseases kind of issues, right? Furthermore, if you see, so if you look at the addictions point of view, so what kind of addictions they will have. So in terms of addictions, friends, first, let's say mostly around 72% of the tribals are addicted for tobacco. So that is one thing. 72% tribes for tobacco usage, and almost you can say more than 50% of the tribes are addicted for the alcohol. So this is one important thing. 50% for alcohol addiction. So like that, if you go on talking about these statistics, so the tribes are one of the most vulnerable sections. So the vulnerability is because of various factors. Be it could be because of their biological factors, be it could be because of their environmental factors, be it could be because of their cultural factors. Now, let us try to explore more about the demand of the question point of view. So what's the demand of the question? Factors affecting the health of tribals, right? So now let's see various factors that affect the tribal health. So factors affecting tribal health. Factors affecting tribal health. Now, you can just say, or you can just type some of the factors that you know with respect to the tribal health, so which affect them. So first, let us consider the factors like the environmental factors. So let's take up the environmental factors and let's try to understand that. So you can text what kind of environmental factors will affect the tribal health, and you can also give some of the examples also. So what kind of things we may expect from them. So that is one another important aspect. So can you text what basic factors, environmental factors that affect the tribal health? Any other, anything that you can recollect as of now? So think from the environment and environment point of view. So environmental factors. So first let's discuss about them. So if you look from environmental or environmental factors, so first thing it would be like we can take up the thing like they are subjected for geographical isolation. So can you able to recollect that geographical isolation? So that means the place of residence. So the first thing, first environmental factor is you can have like geographical isolation. So due to this geographical isolation, what are the various aspects that we can see? So because of this, we can have things like, let's say for example, low access to health, low access to healthcare facilities. Then next thing, we can have low immunity levels because of isolation. Then furthermore, what kind of things you can have because of this? Low health awareness. So these kind of aspects will be there with respect to them. So here particularly when we see from the perspective of some of the things, so there particularly you can see things like the geographical isolation when we say, so talk about the Andaman tribes. Like you can take up an example of the Jarvas and Sentinelese. Jarvas and Sentinelese. So what has happened among them? So if you see from the perspective of these Jarvas and Sentinelese, so due to the geographical isolation, what you can remember is that, so mostly they have low levels of immunity. And what another important astonishing things that we can remember is that, so they've also been subjected to lot of the issues. So that is where you can recollect some of the things. So in 2008, so what has happened? See, in 2006 to 2008, so they have been subjected to some of the epidemics. So this led to loss of population. So usually like simple entry of the outsiders also lead to this kind of issues. So there, like you can remember that, so when they are subjected to such kind of things, so there is every possibility that they will be having some of such kind of problems. So like that. So this is one important factor. Then furthermore, if we see, so next environmental factors, if we can take, so they'll be generally subjected to environmental stresses. So what kind of environmental stress they may be subjected? So there they may be subjected to, let's say, extreme temperatures could be one thing. Extreme temperatures, or things could be, say for example, there could be like other aspects like when desertic conditions. So this is basic one. So furthermore, you can have like hypoxia. That could be one thing. So when they have, like, imagine a condition when they are in the high altitude places, so then they will have hypoxia. So here what we can see in this case, so there we can expect some of the respiratory issues. So there is possibility of occurrence of that. So such kind of issues, there is possibility. Respiratory issues is possible. Then extreme temperatures, there is possibility of occurrence of some of the some typical health issues. So this is another important aspect. So like this, so there could be such factors like that. Then if you see things like habitat related factors. So think about, mostly they'll be residing in wild life areas and forest areas, you can say. So these forest areas, due to residing in wildlife areas and forest areas, so one thing is that they are very much prone for vector-borne diseases. Vector-borne diseases, like let's say for example, high instance of occurrence of malaria. So you can see this further in Central Indian people like Santals and Gonds. So in Central Indian belt, you can have this. Furthermore, so as they are wildlife, they'll be living with wildlife. So that means animals. So due to this, they'll be prone for more of zoonotic diseases. Zoonotic diseases. So some of the diseases which will be transmitted from animals to humans. So that is another important aspect. So like that, so they will have some of the important environmental factors. So they'll be affecting that. So be it could be the climate, so be it could be the habitat related thing, be it could be environmental stresses, or be it could be the geographical isolation. So such factors may affect the tribes in a first instance. So that's one important thing. So then furthermore, if you see, so there would be some biological factors also that will affect. So what kind of biological factors are they will affect? What are the various biological factors that affect? So can you text any biological factor which affect the health of the tribes? Biological factors. So when we look from biological factors, so one important biological factor is the genetic susceptibility of certain tribes. So certain tribes are genetically susceptible to certain diseases. So this is one important aspect. Genetic susceptibility, or we can also say genetic predisposition. That means you can say disease predisposition. Can you give any example for genetic susceptibility or genetic predisposition? Any particular example? So if you see, so some of you have texted, so sickle cell anemia. So you can have an example of this sickle cell anemia. So certain tribal people are subjected to some of the frequent diseases, like let's say, for example, this sickle cell anemia. Say, the Central Indian people like Santals and Gonds. So they are all subjected to this. Santals, Gonds, and other sections. So they will have a kind of heterozygous sickle, heterozygous, you can mention hemoglobin. So that means HBS and HBA. HBA is normal allele, HBS is sickle allele. So this is one important aspect. So this is genetic susceptibility, and they will have more, they will be subjected, or they will be prevalent, more prevalence of sickle cell anemia will be there. And other important biological factor that you can have is, it is one thing that you can remember, like antagonistic pleiotropy of genes. Antagony of pleiotropy of certain genes. So this can be another important biological factor that is affecting the health of certain tribes. So what do you mean by pleiotropy? Pleiotropy means basically what you can remember, pleiotropy. So try to recollect this and understand this in a systematic fashion. So pleiotropy means when a particular gene is responsible for controls several factors or traits. Several factors or traits. That is known as pleiotropy. One particular gene responsible for multiple functions. So that is pleiotropy. Whereas, what is antagonistic pleiotropy? So this is another important thing we should understand. So antagonistic pleiotropy. So there one gene will be responsible for multiple factors. So where same gene will be harmful in certain part of the life and same gene will be beneficial in certain part of life. So let's say, for example, we have a gene called P53 gene. So what does this P53 gene do? So it will suppress, or you can say it will control tumor formation in engage. And it is responsible for arresting cancer. So you won't get cancer because of P53 gene in the young age. But same P53 gene, what does it do in the adult stage or in a later part of the life? So it will suppress the stem cell proliferation. Stem cell proliferation. So thing that you have to remember is that, so same gene, one side it is helpful and another side it is harmful. So due to stopping of or like suppression of the stem cell proliferation, so body regeneration will stop. So that's how, so same gene is showing some sort of antagonistic effect. So same gene is responsible for controlling multiple factors and it is showing some opposite reactions. So that's kind of thing we will call it as antagonistic pleiotropy. So you have to understand that. So in the same fashion, we can take up the example of the sickle cell or heterozygous hemoglobin condition. So where HBS and HBA kind of hemoglobin. So here this also shows a kind of antagonistic pleiotropy where due to presence of this HBS, so HBS allele, so mostly they will be subjected to sickle cell anemia on one side. This is harm. They will be subjected to sickle cell anemia. On other side, due to presence of this heterozygous condition of hemoglobin, so they will have malaria resistance. Malaria resistance. So this is a benefit. Can you able to see that? So both of them are antagonistic, opposite actions. So this is where what you have to remember is that, so same gene is showing multiple effects. So that is known as pleiotropy. Now, if you see from the tribe's point of view, so this antagonistic pleiotropy of the genes, let's say for example, the same HBS and HBA genes or HBA type of hemoglobin. So what you can say? Because of this, they are not only subjected for the sickle cell anemia, but also getting malaria resistance. So advantage plus disadvantage. So this is one important aspect you should remember. This is one important biological factor, right? So then there are certain inbreeding effects. So there is also another important aspect. Inbreeding or consanguineous breeding. So that means tribes are also endogamous groups, so they'll marry within themselves. So this is also one another thing. So this further causes certain the genetic disorders. So it causes some of the genetic disorders. So this is also affecting the health of the tribes. So that is one thing. So that's one thing. And then furthermore, if you see certain biological aspects, say the nutritional aspects. So nutrition. So we can have it in mostly in the other factors like cultural factors. So this is how biology of the individuals also, the tribals also affecting much. So that's one another important aspect, right? So furthermore, if you see some of the cultural aspects, so what kind of cultural factors that affect? So when we see cultural factors, so they would be generally things like, so first we can talk about the dietary practices. Dietary practice is one of the important cultural factor. So there, first thing we can see the diet and food patterns. This is one thing. So most of them are they will be like a hunting and gathering and primitive type of mode of things. So there, because of lack of proper thing, they will be subjected to malnutrition. So this could be one common issue. So we have saw, so how many tribes are malnourished. So that's another important aspect. So furthermore, so some peculiar diet habits are there. So let me put it in this way. So some peculiar diet habits. So first, certain tribes have some issues like let's say cannibalism was one of the important dietary practice in certain tribes. So let's say let's discuss about the Kuru disease. So Kuru disease is a kind of neurodegenerative disease that was prevalent among the four tribes of Papua New Guinea. So it's a kind of neurodegenerative disease. Neurodegenerative disease. So here what happens means usually those who get this Kuru disease, they used to get the weak fragile nervous system, so their tremors and all such kind of things and such issues will be there. So they have got this because of their endocannibalistic practice. Endocannibalistic practice. That means they used to eat the meat of dead ancestors or like that. Imagine a condition there a person has been died. Then obviously they won't let that body to either burning or they won't dig it. So what they do? So they won't bury it. So what they do? They will just eat that particular body. So particularly while eating this, so they started eating the brain also. So from brain, so there were so many prions, and these prions are toxic to body. So these prions led to systematic causage of Kuru disease among them. So this is a case study. So you can just remember and you can just mention such kind of things, right? So this is one cultural factor like in the diet that we can say, right? Furthermore, so there could be some taboos and myths with respect to dietary taboos. So what kind of dietary taboos we can have? Dietary taboos. So this is one thing. So where you can see some instances like, for example, the Paroja tribes of Odisha in India only, Paroja tribes of Odisha. So they have a taboo on mother milk. They won't consume milk of any animal, including mother also. So for this, what do? So they will feed the babies with a particular alcohol that is brewed of rice, that is known as hadiya. Hadiya feeding. They will feed the babies with hadiya. So hadiya is a kind of alcoholic beverage made up of rice. So they will feed the babies with hadiya. So babies will always be in a kind of intoxicated state, and because of this they won't feel hungry. They won't feel hungry. So that's why they won't go for feeding of the mother. So this is one dietary practice. So here systematically we will get some health issues, like think about the malnutrition. So when you don't get this thing, so what this has led, so this dietary taboos led to issues like malnutrition. Then we have like lack of low immunity, such kind of issues, right? That is one important aspect. So like that we have so many further aspects. Then furthermore, if you see, so some other important things that you can remember is, you can recollect is, so with respect to their other cultural practices, think about the marriages. So they are endogamous. So when they are endogamous, obviously some of the genetic disorders because of consanguinity. So there is possibility of that. So some other cultural practices. So think about their economic modes of subsistence. So they are relying upon the hunting and gathering kind of mode of subsistence. So there they will expose and they will get some other issues. Then we see shifting cultivation. Because of shifting cultivation, again there will be systematic lack of access to nutritious food. So there also they will face issues. So that is another important aspect. So then religious beliefs. So primitive religious beliefs. So this is also another factor where affects the health of these tribal people. So like that. So furthermore, if you see in environmental aspects, so if these people are residing in certain areas with polluted water or such thing, there you can have some other issues, like tribes residing in Rajasthan area, which is filled, with fluoride contamination. You can have that issues. So fluoride contamination, and with that same tribals are having this fluorosis, dental fluorosis as well as skeletal fluorosis. That's one thing. So then same the tribes living in the Nalgonda region of Telangana, so there also fluorosis, excessive fluorosis levels are there. So that's how we can have a lot of issues with respect to the health of the tribes. So this is where we should just mention some of the case studies, and we should mention some of the important aspects related to the factors affecting the tribal health, right? So this is how you can mention some of the factors, and you can give 1 or 2 case studies, and you can explain that, and you can conclude that, right? So any further doubts in this question? So approach is that, so systematically you should, you have to mention current status, and then mention some of the like 2 to 3 environmental factors, 2 to 3 geographical factors, 2 to 3 health related factors, that is biological factors and cultural factors. So that's how you can conclude the answer later on. So, okay, so let's see, there is a request. So I have a request, as you are discussing daily PYQ, can you also discuss important hotspots of anthropology? Okay, we'll look into that aspect, Pragya. So important hotspots. So how can we identify hotspots? So from PYQs. So let's try to pick those things also. I'll tell in this particular area, so what could be the possible hotspots like that, right? That's all for the day from my side. So try to write answers for the question, and let's meet again in another important session. So we'll meet on tomorrow, right? So thank you all for the joining discussion. So let's meet in the next session. Have a nice day.